Yeah, and if the numbers don't bear out, our choice is drop the project or increase the equity. A lot of times we'll raise more equity to make sure we've got a bigger cushion. And of course, we put builders contingency and overhead and things like that.
What's the number one secret to developing a successful apartment project?
uh, not Probably conservative underwriting and fixed debt.
Yeah.
Things change. Nobody can predict the future. I have looked and looked, and my crystal ball has never cleared up. It's always cloudy. So it is being conservative, and hopefully the under promise yourself and your investors, and hopefully overproduce, because it doesn't always work out.
What's the number two secret to that conservative underwriting piece? Let's dive into that a little bit. What's like one or two things that you make sure that you do on every single underwriting that makes sure you're having that conservative?
We'll take whatever the market numbers are, right? I mean, cap rates are what they are, interest rates are what they are, and so we assume at least 100, sometimes 150 basis point expansion if we're planning on selling. Sometimes we'll build a project and we'll have sort of this projected sale at 5 years, and sometimes it's a projected recap and refinance and cash flow on down the road. We expect some expansion of cap rates. We try to use historical rent growth numbers. And I actually had a young employee who had only been working since the GFC, and was telling me was putting in rent numbers, saying it was really conservative on the rent numbers, and she put in a number that was for the time. I gave her a project, told her to go back. I said, you go back and look at the last 20 years of what the average rent growth was over the last 20 years, and it was about half of what she was projecting as conservative. So point being, we try to not predict super rent growth. We try to fix our debt, and if it's we try to fix our debt. Period. And then the last thing we do is we run sensitivity tables, because what happens, right? So we run sensitivity tables for if occupancy goes down to 80% or rent growth stays flat or goes down. We want to see that we can make debt service and see that we've still got a property that we can hold on to, because if you can hold on to a property during bad times, it eventually hits that ramp that goes back up to the top of the hill. So we want to make sure we're around when things go bad.
Yeah. So it sounds like part of this conservative underwriting is historic rent growth, making sure your debt is fixed so that has no variable change in it whatsoever.
Right.
And you can count on that, being a fixed cost moving forward.
Yep.
And then making sure that you're doing a, stress test on, hey, what happens if we drop to 70%? Can we still make it, right? What happens if this happens? And just trying to do some contingency plans throughout the pro forma to make sure that, hey, does it still hold up if something goes super south on us?
Yeah, and if the numbers don't bear out, our choice is drop the project or increase the equity. A lot of times we'll raise more equity to make sure we've got a bigger cushion. And of course, we put builders contingency and overhead and things like. We try to have a lot of cushion in there, because stuff just goes wrong. You can imagine what COVID did to the projects we had ongoing. That stretched out a 20-month process to 34 months. And so, loans start to amortize or loans start to amortize before you've got people in there leasing units, and buildings are built slower because of supply lines and things like that. So it's nice when you've got some extra contingency, because costs do go up unexpectedly.